Hey everyone, welcome back to this explainer. I'm your host, and today I'm kind of acting as your fellow student guide because we're tackling something we all second guess at work: workplace grammar. If you've ever stared at a draft of a business email and wondered if it sounds quite right, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're going to level up our professional communication together. Let's look at what we've been getting wrong and how tiny words can drastically change our meaning in the office. Here's our study guide for the day. We're going to fix those sneaky grammar habits that trip us up in formal writing and business emails. We'll look at the direct translation trap, tricky prepositions, presentation slip-ups, two-object verbs, and we'll even do a quick quiz at the end to test ourselves. Let's get right into it. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the direct translation trap. You know, one of the biggest reasons our workplace English sometimes sounds just a little bit off is because we instinctively try to translate directly from our native languages. And man, that habit can lead to some surprisingly embarrassing communication failures with our colleagues. So let me ask you, why is the phrase "explain me this rule" incorrect? It's a super common trap we fall into when asking a boss or colleague for help. It sounds fine, right? But to a native speaker, it completely misses the mark. Well, here's the fix. Explain this rule to me. The secret sauce here is that tiny little preposition to. For specific verbs like explain and describe, the person you're talking to is the object of the preposition to, not the direct object of the verb itself. So we don't explain a person, we explain a concept to a person. Breaking this direct translation habit is going to instantly make your workplace requests sound so much more polite and natural. Moving right along to Section 2, let's look at some tricky email prepositions. Since we now know prepositions are kind of the secret to sounding natural, let's look at those subtle differences that can entirely change the tone of your business emails. Take think about versus think of. If you're writing an email considering a job offer, you want to use think about. About is for actively pondering broad, detailed topics, like, I need to think about your job offer. But if you're in a brainstorming meeting and an idea just flashes into your mind, you use think of, like, oh, I just thought of a solution. It's a tiny shift, but about shows deep consideration, while of shows a sudden connection. Here's another one that is absolutely crucial for office communication: remind about versus remind of. These two have completely different meanings. You use about as an alert or a notification, like, please remind me about the meeting tomorrow. But you use of when something triggers a memory or resemblance. For example, this new software reminds me of the old system. If you accidentally tell a colleague to remind me of the meeting, it sounds like the meeting triggers some emotional memory for you. Definitely not what we mean to say. And this right here brilliantly illustrates why picking the wrong preposition causes major workplace confusion. Look at shout at versus shout to. Shout at implies scolding or aggression. You literally never want to accidentally write that you shouted at the boss. Yikes! But shout to implies distance and connection. If you're across a huge warehouse, you might shout to a colleague so they can hear you. At directs aggression, while to creates a communication connection. Okay, jumping into Section 3, fixed business prepositions. In English, some verbs have a really strict partnership with a specific preposition. Let's walk through the study table together to see these fixed pairs that are absolutely essential for formal situations. If you're running behind, you apologize for your late arrival, never apologize about. If you need your team, you depend on them. In HR or legal contexts, someone is accused of a mistake, not accused for. And safety protocols protect from danger. Memorizing these exact pairings will make your formal writing absolutely bulletproof. Now, I want to highlight a massive warning for the verb pay. This is a special case that trips up so many people in finance and general business. You pay for a physical purchase, like grabbing a coffee. I'll pay for the coffee. But when you're dealing with invoices, taxes, or bills, you use no preposition at all. You just pay the bill or pay your taxes. Adding for before bills is a super frequent mistake, so make sure to keep this one in your notes. Shifting gears to Section 4, avoiding presentation mistakes. When we're speaking in front of the team, we want to sound confident, but stative verbs can totally trip us up. Have you ever been told not to say "I am wanting"? Well, here's why. The crucial point is the difference between a permanent state and an action. Stative verbs describe a permanent condition, and our golden rule is that we generally do not use them with an ing ending. You say, "I think English is fun" as a permanent state. You wouldn't say, "I am thinking English is fun." However, the verb think is an exception when it describes the temporary process of considering something. That's exactly why you can say, I am thinking about the problem. To keep your presentations perfectly polished, here's a quick checklist of common state of verbs involving thoughts, feelings, and possession. Know, believe, understand, want, need, and belong. As a general rule, just never use these with an ing ending in your professional pitches. It's always, I understand the strategy, not I am understanding the strategy. And we need more time, not we are needing more time. Let's move on to Section 5, verbs with two objects. Let's give our English a structural flex, shall we? Mastering verbs that accept two distinct objects lets us build sentences in multiple, flexible ways. But first, let's define these terms clearly. The direct object is the primary receiver of the action. It answers what or whom. The indirect object is the beneficiary. It answers to whom or for whom. So think about giving a colleague a present. The present is the direct object. It's what is being given. The colleague is the indirect object. They're the beneficiary receiving it. Now check out how this gives us two totally correct ways to build a sentence. Step 1, you can put the indirect object first without a preposition, like the company offered my father a job. Or step 2, you can put the direct object first, but then you must use to or for, like the company offered a job to my father. Both of these steps are perfectly correct and mean the exact same thing. Knowing both allows you to mix up your sentence structures in formal writing so you don't sound repetitive. And here's an incredibly useful trick for writing professional emails. Because we have two objects here, we can actually create two different passive voice options. You can say, a job was offered to my father, putting the focus on the job. Or you can make the person the subject. My father was offered a job. This second option is extremely common in English. Next time you write an email, try using this passive structure to sound highly professional and objective. Okay, we've made it to Section 6, the Professional Polish Quiz. It's time for a rapid-fire quiz to cement all the knowledge we just studied together. First question, fill in the blank. Please remind me, blank, the meeting tomorrow. Remember, this is an email alert about a calendar event. Which preposition do we use? The answer is about. Please remind me about the meeting tomorrow. Awesome job if you got that right. Just remember, about acts as a notification for an upcoming event, whereas of would mean the meeting reminds you of a childhood memory. All right, let's try the second test. Fill in the blank. Economists warn blank a possible recession. This one focuses on broader, formal professional warnings rather than an immediate physical threat. What's your guess? The answer is O of. Economists warn of a possible recession. Well done. While warn about and warn of can sometimes be swapped out, warn of is the absolute perfect, polished choice for broader, formal threats in business writing. Wow, we have covered so much ground today as fellow students of the English language, from tricky email prepositions to mastering state of verbs and two-object sentence structures. So I want to leave you with this final thought. What is the one direct translation habit you are going to break tomorrow to instantly elevate your professional English? I challenge you to apply today's study guide to the very next business email you write. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.